Great to see all the faces here. You're about to hear one of the most fascinating perspectives on design by Giovanni Niederhausern from, he arrived from Italy just yesterday. Giovanni is the CEO of a company that has everything you can imagine, from designs for engineering all the way to architecture, 700 people, and he will give his amazing perspective on design. Afterwards, we're going to have some time for a Q&A. So if you think of anything that might be interesting to ask afterwards, feel free. Giovanni?
Should I use this one? Use this one as well. Well, thank you very much. Also, because you said that I'm the CEO. I'm not the CEO of Pininfarina. I'm head of architecture. So I say hi to our CEO, which is Silvio Angori. Don't be offended. Okay, it's a great pleasure to be here with you. Thank you to the organizers and to Yuval for introducing myself. So my presentation is called Seamless, and I'll try to explore with you the impact of new technologies over, or anyway, of technology over design, starting from the design phase to the product. But first, I wanted to spend a few words about Pininfarina, because I'm not sure how many of you know the brand. Pininfarina is actually a 90 years old brand. I mean, we will actually celebrate 90 years in 2020. And it's mostly known for car design. We designed more than 100 Ferraris, so it's like most of the time connected to Ferrari cars, for example. But over time, in the 90 years, especially in the last 30 years, we diversified our activity across different fields. So we go from business strategy design to digital services, industrial design, interior design, architecture, and master planning. I wanted anyway to elaborate a little bit more about what we do, about our history, about our vision in architecture, and then I'll walk you through a few projects that will demonstrate our vision on how technology impacts over design. As I said, let's start with a few cars, because we're mostly, no, sorry, I wanted also to show you these slides about our geographical presence. So it's true that I'm coming from Italy and that the headquarters is in Torino, but we actually have branches in Munich, Germany, and in Miami and Shanghai. And this is a plus because we don't just work across very different scales of design, but we have insights on very different markets and cultures, you know. And also about technology, we have, a lot of insights on how technology is emerging across different cultures, and this is very important to be able to manage technology in design. So as I was saying, I wanted to start with a few cars. I'm not an expert of cars, but I'll try my best. Pininfarina over time designed cars for 90 years and was able, to do radical innovation in car design. This, for example, is called Cisitalia 202, was a car designed for a brand that was called Cisitalia. It doesn't exist anymore. And this car is now at MoMA. It's considered like a piece of sculpture and a breakthrough element in car design history. Why? Because before Cisitalia, designing a car was about moving two volumes. So the lower part and the upper part. So it was mostly about moving, the upper part a little bit forward, a little bit backward. And Pininfarina completely changed the game because, created two volumes that are connected into one. For this reason, since Cisitalia, car design completely changed. And another radical innovation that Pininfarina did in car design is in Ferrari Mythos, which is basically an evolution of the Ferrari Testarossa that we all know. So again, it was about the shape and the fact that the two volumes I was mentioning before and that were still recognizable in the Cisitalia became just one single volume. And this again completely changed the car design history, because for the first time a Gran Turismo was integrated into kind of a racing car. We also did some crazy things that anyway, in a way, innovated the way we design cars. This is a model from 1960 and it's called Pininfarina X. This, to me, it's very important because it represents the multidisciplinary of our approach. Since we tried, or they tried, I wasn't still born at that time, but to merge a plane and a car. And this is important because drives me to the next question. The next slide, which is a question. How would you define a car designer? When I entered Pininfarina, my experience was mostly in architecture. I didn't even own a car. So first I went to car designer and I started to understand what is a car designer? What do they do? And I got a very nice reply, and it was that a car designer has the aim to design objects in which people can identify, and therefore objects with character. And to me, this was a game changer, because there I understood that a car designer can design an architecture, can design an object, because for them, everything which has an identity and it's something with which people can identify, for them it's a work of a car designer. And architecture, if you think about it, it's something that has to have a character, even more than a car, and it's something in which not just one person, but many people has to identify. This is very much true for cars. Just a small thing. When I entered Pininfarina, as I was saying, I didn't own a car, and a car was part of the package. So they said, you have to choose a car. So, I started to question myself. What is the first question that I did was, what is a car that can represent myself? And funny enough, in the end, it was a Mini Cooper. And they were very surprised and said, are you serious? So as I was saying, character identity, but there is another element that, connects car designers to architects, which is complexity. If you think about it, car designers had, since the beginning, to confront themselves with very complex objects. A car is a very complex object by itself. It's still one of the most complex objects. And that's why, as Pininfarina, we don't have just a team that does design, but we also have an engineering firm within Pininfarina. And this, again, connects to architecture, especially in the last few years. Because as car design is done by three elements nowadays, engineering, style, and digital components, I have to say that actually the digital experience is the way to differentiate the design and the car one from the others. It's not anymore style. If you look at cars, they look pretty much all the same. But this is exactly the three layers that we have in architecture or in urban planning, which is a strong engineering part. If you think about architecture, like building systems, up to a few years ago were about like 20-30% of the construction cost. Now, at least in the design that we do, it's 50%. So, like building systems and engineers, they're like equally important as the architecture. We have style, which is architecture which is style for the car, and in architecture is obviously the way we shape a building and cities. And the digital component is more and more entering our cities, our building, that are becoming, open-air computers. Technologies embedding more and more in architecture. How do we synthesize this in architecture? In our division, because I lead a team that does architecture across, 3 different continents. And our vision, our value proposition is synthesized in an equation, which is beauty plus technology equals impact. What does it mean? Well, beauty, as I said before, is very much part of the DNA of Pininfarina. We have to build beautiful things. Car designers, and we ourselves, we're obsessed with very pure, perfect lines. And as you will see, this reflects also in the architecture that we do. But beauty is also for us something wider. It's also well-being. Is a softer sense of beauty. We want to improve in the life of people and the way they relate with the building. Technology, as I was saying, is both a technology in the design phase, so adopting new technologies and software to design buildings. This is Grasshopper, but more and more data analysis, to me, is important in architecture to inform the design. So my team works a lot with Python, for example. But it's also technology in what we design. So as I was saying, building are more and more integrating technology, and we have to deal with that. We have to, to look at it from the user perspective. We have to work on the experience of the users, which is mediated by new technologies. And we strongly believe that beauty plus technology, they have to have a final aim, which is generate a positive social impact, which means improve life of people and life of users of what we do. Either like they can be cities or they can be buildings. So this was a brief introduction, like starting from the history of Pininfarina until what we do today. And I'll now move into a few projects by scale. So I'll start with product design up to infrastructural design, but also, by describing the concept of seamless, more in what is the shape of the object, the aesthetics, until the experience, which is nowadays, the most important part. So I started with a project that dates back to 2006, which is the Olympic Games torch. We're based in Torino, as I said before, and in 2006 we had the Olympic Games, and Pininfarina had to design the torch. It might look very simple objects, but actually it had a lot of work in the design phase. It's an aluminum frame, but it has, the torch has to resist to a number of different conditions. Had to activate the flame both in cold and hot weathers, in rainy weather, like with people running. So it's a very complex object. And the design of the torch started with our design team, but immediately moved into the engineering team. So there was a strong engineering work that was done also in our wind tunnel that you see in the background. So our engineering team had to start to study the aerodynamics of the object as if it was a car. I have to say that we are maybe the only architectural office in the world owning a wind tunnel. Obviously, this is mostly used for car design, but we have one, and we can use it also for objects and architectures. Then, there was also the production part, because Pininfarina is also able to, and it's also a need, to prototype, but also to build up by scale and scale up products. So this is an aluminum frame that was completely done and finished within Pininfarina. You can't believe how many of these were done. I mean, it was crazy to me, but I understood also the reason why they came to Pininfarina. They did build 12,000 Olympic torch, which is a big number. And so why did they come to Pininfarina? Because in our DNA, we have also the knowledge to scale up a design, because designing cars for us is normal to think about an object that can be replicated many times. Moving up in scales, this is a more recent project, and it's about a plane, because we also design planes and trains and blah, blah, blah. But this is related to the interior design of a plane. And again, it's more formal, the approach, so it's more about how we can create very seamless space from an aesthetic and functional perspective. In this case, we were required to completely change the relation between the user and the interior of the plane. This is obviously a private jet, so you will say, well, this is, you did one, but luxury is very much a trendsetter. For everything that is happening. So I think that this project, although it's a luxury project, basically intercept a trend that is coming also in airplane design, which is completely changing the relation with the plane itself. This because we are getting used to flying. We're getting used to that technology. So we don't want to sit, 8 or 12 or 24 hours in a chair, but we want to think about the plane as a more livable space, more fluid space in which people can meet and interact. If you think about it, like a couple of weeks ago, the longest flight ever was done between London and Sydney. And the nice thing was not the length of the flight, but the fact that for the first time, Qantas, which is the airline company, started to question themselves about well-being. So how we can, since it's, I think it's a 24-hour flight, how we can maximize the experience and the well-being of users within the plane. So this project goes in this direction, and as you can see, the cabin is not divided into sections, but it's a fluid space, very, very open. We also had the integration of green. This is the bar part, and then there's a meeting room. And this is a screen, not a window, but there are immersive screens. So we played with all the elements that impact on well-being, which is light, which is quality of air, which is quality of space, integration of green, integration of pieces of art, fluid spaces, and this is the last one of the meeting room. The same concept, a similar concept was applied to, let's go back to architecture and let's go up in scale. This is an interior design project in which we started to integrate technology also in the use of the building. So it's not just technology impacting or new trends impacting on the space, but also technology integrated in the continuous use of the building. This is a showroom in Vorbach, Germany, for Novem. And Novem is a company that does interior design for cars. This is a showroom, and it's a very long space in which you could get lost. So Novem asked us, through technology, to create a way for people to accompany people in the experience and to drive them. And we decided to use light, since light for Novem is very important, because light in the interior of the car is key. And we designed these linear elements of light that you will see in the final picture that basically recognize the presence of the person. So in the moment in which you enter the showroom and you register yourself, the building detects yourself and follows you, enlightening your path, but at the same time guiding you into the space. And as you can see here, you see the system of this linear lighting that becomes architecture. So as I was saying, this is the first project that we did in architecture that integrates an interaction between space and building over time. And this is more and more important now because we see buildings as living objects that seamlessly interact with us. The first idea on this project was, let's put a lot of screens. Like in this room, we're like most of the time we're like in the middle of spaces with a lot of screens. Actually, we said no. The future is a space in which the interaction is so seamless that you don't need a screen anymore. You just interact directly with the space. You see, and so you don't have screen for this interaction. Moving up in scale, I moved to high-rise buildings. This is a building in São Paulo. It's called Cirela. And again, this is intercept a new trend, which is the fact that many cities now has to deal with gentrification. It means that the cost of real estate is becoming very, very high, especially in central areas. So Cirela, apart from the beautiful design, intercept the trend designing like reducing at the minimum the private space and maximizing shared spaces. This is something that was discussed also yesterday in a conference, and apparently is a trend that is coming also to Israel. So we're talking about apartments of about 60, 70 square meters, and a lot of shared spaces that are designed following the well-building standard, which is trying to maximize the well-being of the users that live in the space. We use the well-building standard because we believe that, again, it intercepts a trend which is like putting back the user at the core of our design and not technology, because technology is just a tool that we can use to maximize the experience and the well-being of the user. I'll spend a few words about this. I'm sure you're familiar with LEED. LEED is about certifying and checking the performance of the building. So this door, this window has specific performance. I put it in a checklist, and then at the end of the checklist, I get a ranking, and I'm certified LEED Platinum, Gold, or whatever. Well is completely different. So you don't start from the building, you start from the perception of and the impact that the environment has on the person, and then you move to the building. So you start from understanding the quality of the air, the quality of the light, the nourishment, because food is included into the well. So if you certify the building well, also you have to enter into what people is eating within the building, and then you move to the building itself, but at the end of the process, you don't start from that. And this is like an approach that we are using across all scales. As I showed before, also in the interior design of trains, of cars, of planes, and whatever. This obviously has an impact also on the interior design, which is very fluid. You know, light is very like comfortable, and also the temperature. This is the lobby, and these are all the common areas. This is the ballroom, so it's kind of an extended living room that you can rent, and like by the hours or. And again, technology is important because all the building is managed through a digital platform. So like renting the living room, for example, you can do it via app and access the space via app and so on and so forth. Like since we were born from car design, for us also the garage, the experience of entering the building is important. So we applied this concept of well-being also to the garage, which is usually an ugly place that architects don't really like to design. And especially in outdoor spaces. So this is the swimming pool and the tropical garden. Similar project, 66 Tower, is a project in Cyprus. The concept is the same, so I will not spend too many words on this one. But I wanted to, explore with you like something that is happening in Cyprus and that is happening now in Greece, which is the fact that if you invest more than 1 million in the country in real estate, you get the passport. So we were involved in a number of luxury projects in Cyprus and now in Greece. So it's pretty unique as an experience of designing a luxury building in an island like Cyprus, because luxury buildings were not existing really. Well, here you see mostly the interior design, but I think the most relevant thing is actually on the outside, in which we had to confront ourselves with a context which is not luxury at all, trying to dialogue in a way with it, to dialogue with the sea, and the idea was in this case to take these smooth lines, white lines that reconnect to the white cliffs in Cyprus, if you're familiar with the island. The next project is again a high-rise project in China this time. It's for a company which is called iGold, and again this project merges both technology in the design part. The design is very fluid, is through parametric and generative design, but so also the inside, like you can recognize in some senses the smooth lines of cars. But again, the plus is in the technology that we used. So again, as in the project before, everything is mediated by an app. So you can access spaces based on your profile through the app. The system recognizes yourself, changes the temperature in the room, unlock the meeting room, and also through augmented reality for visitors, you can navigate the space. But I'll dive deep into an experience that I find very fun, which is again the garage. So in this case, the client was obsessed by cars. So again, the garage was very important, and we wanted to create in the garage a seamless experience. So in the moment in which you register, the system, as you see here, recognizes through camera recognition your plate. You're assigned to a specific parking lot. And again, through light, you follow the lights and you find your parking lot. And then from the parking lot, again, following light signals, you can go to your guest or to your office. And this is the space of the garage. Again, we put a lot of attention to this, both in lights, integration to green. And as you can see, the lighting elements on the ground, they can, drive you in the building seamlessly. So you don't need like an iPhone, a tool, because more and more we see an interaction between buildings and people, which is not mediated by a personal device, but it's more natural. This is the seamless design for us nowadays. Last two projects. Vilnius Opera House is, we grow up in scale, and this is at the urban level. So we were involved into this competition for Vilnius to design the new opera house. And we wanted to understand how new technologies such as 5G can impact over the design of a building. Everyone is now talking about 5G, but you don't actually see any kind of application that can be really, like a game changer. So we try to explore this, and so the most important part is not related to the project itself. It's very dynamic. This is the inside. So we have projections that interact with the opera and blah blah blah. But the important part for us was to connect the opera with the city. So we created these pods in the city that are connected in 5G and that can show in real time what's happening within the opera house. These are holograms, so they look like 3D, like people actually in the pod, and they can, bring the opera to the city. This is very much important also for new generations. One of the requests was to try to connect the opera to new generations, and so technology in this sense can also have a cultural and a social impact, in bringing art to new generation, like at least one field of art which is not really, doesn't really sound with Gen Z and millennials. So the pod can be moved and represent for us something key, which is called ephemeral design, and we see it more and more coming as a trend also in retail, to create, temporary installation in cities that can connect to some larger content, to communicate better with the people. And the last project that I wanted to show you, it's at the infrastructural level, and it's the ATC Tower in Istanbul, Turkey. In this case, again, we were invited into a competition. We competed with Zadi, the architect that did the presentation before, but we won. No, I'm joking. Like 2 of my designers are actually coming from Zadi, so we really like it. In this case, again, it was mostly about applying parametric design to create a very elegant shape that reminds the tulip, which is the symbol of Turkey. There was a lot of design studies, also aerodynamic studies related to the shape of the building and the construction materials. It's a steel structure covered in this glass fiber cement. But the thing that I like the most is that it's a white building, so it's neutral in color. And the color is given by a lighting system that allows the building to change in color like in different moments of the day or of the year, and this makes, in a way, the building something alive, that can change, that can dialogue, that can become a symbol. So we go back to the beginning, we have to create objects in which people can identify themselves. And this is very much, now a symbol of Istanbul, because I went to the city and on the maps that you buy in tourist store, sometimes you also find the tower, and we're very proud of it. That's it. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm happy to answer to questions if you have it, but since I have to run to the airport at a certain point, I put my email here, okay? So if you want to follow up, feel free to drop me down line.
Guys, we're going to have a short questions and answer session. I will be the first, because I can. Thank you very much, Giovanni, it was amazing. And, for me, it's almost a contradiction to see somebody with your technical background, engineering background and science, arriving to a company that is so conservative in a way, with a 90 years legacy, very dedicated to craft. So for me, it would be very interesting to hear about this kind of conflict between the two ends. And also, Italy is known for great design, but also a bit conservative in some ways.
Yeah, thank you for the question. No, yeah, you're right. Also when I decided to join Pininfarina, I was kind of scared by a company that has 90 years. But actually, it's all about the mindset. As I showed in the beginning, Pininfarina was able to radically change the way we think about cars. And so they're used to thinking in a radical way, thinking how we can do something completely different that can change for the better, hopefully, the way we see the world and the way we interact with objects. So I actually found a team, which is very open-minded, and I went through a number of change management processes in my previous experiences. So I was helping companies innovate from the inside. While in Pininfarina, I had this opportunity to enter in a company which is used to innovation. Also, another thing that makes them very active is the fact that we work across very different fields of design. We go from, as I was saying, engineering, design, prototyping, production, because now also we went back to production of cars. We have this car which is called Battista, which is the first electric supercar. So last year, a couple of years ago, but since last year, we started also to produce cars. So every year, every day, I would say, we have to think about something new. We used to say there is no easy day at Pininfarina because the last easy day was yesterday.
Anybody has a question? I can come up with a million more. So, all right, I will. Anytime you need to shoot off, just tell me to the flight.
I don't have the clock, so
let's do a couple more.
I think I have time, no? Yeah, it's okay. I have 10 minutes.
I would be very interested to, from your vision about technology, to know if you can point of the few most important trends in technology that are related to design and architecture. So everybody here, or most of the people here, are architects or designers. So maybe something we can take home with us to our studio and to focus on.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll say a couple, but then I'll also explain a little bit more my vision about technology. So if I should, point to some technologies, for sure, in the design process, I think we should integrate data analytics. There is a lot of parametric design. But parametric design is mostly associated to shapes, to the aesthetic, to the final, just to have smooth and elegant shapes. But now I think we have to bring this to the next step, and we have to integrate to parametric design data analytics. What does it mean? That we have to get from our clients data about their, the city in which they want to build a building, or previous experiences, or anyway, we have to get data and start visualizing them, gather them, visualize them, and start to inform the design. And in the next step, we should, connect this data analytics part to the parametric design, so that the building that we design are not just nice shapes, but are nice shapes that are justified by some process or something that is really happening in cities or in buildings. This is very important, for example, for mobility. So when we work at the city level, for example, we get data about mobility into city. We analyze it. We put ourselves in the position to do simulations, which means what if I change this street? What if I change this traffic light, and so on and so forth? And then we move to design. The other technology that I think is very important is digital technologies applied to the physical space. As I showed in some cases, buildings now can recognize our presence, not just because of the presence of our phone, but through face recognition and presence recognition. They can identify ourselves, and they can start reacting to ourselves in a more seamless way. But as I was saying yesterday during the panel, I don't think it's about technology, because technology is ready. We have a lot of technology. I think we can do whatever we want with technology. I think it's more important to focus on culture of technology, which is working with our team to understand what we can do with technology. I think that, in a few years from now, there will be two categories of people. Someone who will be able to manage technology and understand what they can do with that, and a part of the population that will be just passive, using technology in a passive way. And we don't want to be in the second category. We don't want to be overwhelmed by that. We want to be active, and we have to teach people, to train them about the potential of technology. So again, it's about people. It's not about technology itself.
It is a big challenge.
It is, yeah.
Maybe we're too old for
But
that.
it's not so difficult, you know. It's just about taking the time to stay with your team, to train them, to brainstorm with them, which is, you know, sometimes it looks like it's not a priority. You know, you have to be BIM ready. I need a BIM manager. I need to buy the license. No, it's not. It's not exactly about that. I mean, you will arrive to that, but first you have to change not to change, but you know, to train the mindset of designers.
Do you guys actually also give your clients the applications, like the technical solutions for stuff, like you showed in the building, for example?
Yeah, this is a good question. Yeah, I mean, I have to say that although we present ourselves as Italians, and we are, but we're not owned by Italian shareholders. Actually, the company was bought by an Indian company, which is called Mahindra. And Mahindra is the largest player in the world about IT services, you know. So we have a plus now, which is not just the fact that we can design technical solutions, but we can also deliver. In the sense that through Tech Mahindra, everything which is digital, from software to you know, also hardware components, we can also deliver solution, especially at this smart city level. I think this is a plus because we always think, we always hear about people that is, you know, proposing a smart city or smart building solutions, but most of the time it's just, you know, like a design, yeah, a nice render or a nice design exercise. While in our case, we are capable, step by step, also to test the solution and inform the client about costing and feasibility. And I mean, if the client asks us, we're also able to deliver and to implement the infrastructure, not ourselves directly, but through a company of our group.
Yes, please.
What is your vision?
She's asking what's, I think, what is your creative vision? But it's very general, a bit more specific.
Chazon, vision, it's a vision.
She wants to hear vision. It's a big
Yeah. Well, I think I presented it, but maybe it was not clear enough. But no, my vision, you know, it's synthesized in the sentence that I showed you before. So we need to design a future that is focused on the user, in which beauty is very much part of it, and quality of the space is much part of it. We have to use technology as a tool, not at the final aim of our research. And especially, we have to work more and put more attention on social impact, you know. And social impact has three characteristics. It has to be intentional, additional, and measurable. So since day one with our clients, we define what is the social goals that we want to reach in a project. It's not something that we do just, you know, during the course of the project, but in the contract we fix on paper with our clients that we want to improve a specific service or a specific target of population. It has to be additional in the sense that we have to force our clients to invest in social impact and expect a social return. It's called SROI, social return on the investment. And it has to be measurable in the sense that since day one we have to understand what are the digital tools that will allow us to understand in a very scientific way whether we did improve life of people over time, you know, not just when the project is completed, but if over time, you know, the project is working and is working well. So, you know, in 3 words, this is the vision.
Well, Giovanni and everybody, thank you very much. I think it's very impressive. You should definitely be the CEO next time we meet up.
Hopefully. Ciao Silvia.